Good evening. Happy Thanksgiving, and welcome to run number 40 of the NJ Fire Guy podcast. Uh, Tonight, we have a great episode coming up. Um, we have a guest that doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to read one for him anyway. Some of you may know him as Jeremy from National Fire Radio, but Jeremy Donch got his start in Franklin Lakes Fire Department at an early age. While attending Marist College, Jeremy continued to follow his passion and volunteered with the Fairview Fire District. In 2018, Jeremy took his passion to an entirely different level and started National Fire Radio. Today, National Fire Radio has grown into an industry all its own, hosting podcasts, advertising progressive products and technologies, assisting charities, and reinvigorating the passion for the job in many. Without further interruption, Jeremy Donch.
Bro,
What's
that
up, brother? How are you?
bell scared the hell out of me in your intro. Are you kidding me with that thing? Holy moly. What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Thank you
good,
for
man.
coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
listen, I think it's incredibly important that guys that are willing to take the time to put their thoughts out there and to dial into the job, and for you to host a podcast to get to 40 episodes is a feat in and of itself. And most people don't get past the second episode, and they even have a hard time anything more than that hitting the record button. So I can appreciate how hard it is and what type of work goes into it. So for you, 40 episodes, man, congratulations. From a guy that has been doing this for quite a while now. That's why I'm not afraid to come on different shows and talk about it, because I think anybody that's willing to take their time and talk about the job. At the end of my podcast, I always say, talk about the job because we're making the job better. And I firmly believe that. So yeah, congratulations, man.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It means a lot,
Yeah.
Like I said in the intro, you've created an industry, and
I think, industry, I had some pushback on that word the other day, actually. I get a lot of upside, and I get a tremendous amount of downside too on the content that we put out, right? Because I'm not afraid to state my opinion. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. I'm not afraid to stand by what I say.
And that scares a lot of people.
Yeah, it scares, but I also think people overvalue their own opinions these days. And I think what a big problem is that everybody believes their own bullshit. And, we all have opinions, and I'm allowed to have them, and you're allowed to tell me differently, and that's fine. But when you preach down to me, or you talk down to me, or you try to tell me that I'm just wrong and it's an opinion-based, thought process that I'm sharing, I take issue with that. And I think what happens is today is, and this is happening in our firehouses all over the country, but we're putting feelings in front of fact. And when we start having debate and conversation today, whether it's in the firehouse or in society or home or at the grocery store, we're getting caught up in feelings and not really fact. If we just talked about fact and left feeling at the curb, we'd be in a much better place. But today, everybody thinks their feelings matter. And in fact, they really don't. And people have to really get on board with that. But we're not trending that way. We're trending to a softer, kinder, gentler side of the world. And so your feelings matter. Sit down and tell me about it. Meanwhile, the world doesn't care. And the fire ground will kick you in the teeth. And the fire will absolutely humble you. And so your feelings matter? Sure they do. You're still going to get kicked in the teeth. Yeah. So we might have to, toughen up, get some more grit, maybe spit on it a little bit.
100%.
Right?
100%, brother. 100%.
I'm tired of the feelings. I'm tired of everybody being so protective of their feelings. I'm tired that, we're in a place today where, I have to take other people's feelings into consideration. We should be abrupt at times. We need to be curt. We need to be short. We need to raise our voice. We need to be direct. And that's not a shot at you. That is correcting behavior, especially in a fireground or in a firehouse. There's not always going to be time where I can pat you on the ass and tell you did a great job, but let me just explain to you how to do it just a little bit different. Get the hell out of here. We can't do it that way. Doesn't work.
I was at a drill one night years ago, and the officer that was running the scenario was teaching a leg lock for victim removal from a window. And one of the older guys goes, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't do that. That's a horrible situation," and explained why. Like, you're now trying to finagle your leg out of a leg lock while you're holding a victim. That's not safe. You now have two people's body weight on one leg with no hands to stabilize or anything. Well, when we got back to the firehouse, that guy was called into the chief's office and ridiculed by all 5 line officers for
The guy that corrected the behavior?
yeah.
Well, there's a tremendous culture problem there.
Like, because you're an officer, like
Well, I mean, we get caught up in it, right?
Yeah.
If you're, in my world, the volunteer fire service, right? We have young officers, and we have, we have people that don't have a lot of fireground experience, possibly riding that front seat on the regular. And we have to be very careful of that. And a big part of that conversation is thank you for stepping up and filling that position. However, it doesn't entitle you to anything more. And in fact, you need to be a bigger student than ever before, because if you're going to step up and take on these roles, you need to surround yourself with whatever you need to get better at being in that position. Yeah. And that includes talking to guys that are more senior than you and letting them help you on some of the decision making. And, listen, there's going to be pushback on what I just said. And that's fine. But, I'm realistic in what the fire service today looks like. And anybody that wants to bury their head in the sand, the problem is we want to take a stand. And people are going to say, oh, we have inexperienced leaders today. We have bosses that shouldn't have promoted. We have the wrong people. You're right. We do. So how do we deal with that? Or do we just want to complain about it, but not make a change?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I saw something really cool on social media. I think Augie Matt posted it on his story because it caught my attention. And there was 2 windows, and it said people that want change at one window and people who are willing to change at the other window. Everybody was online for who wants change. Nobody was online for who wants to change.
Of course, because again, it goes back to that whole, well, my feelings are more important than your feelings. So
yeah,
what
and
I'm
it's
doing
also,
is, yeah.
And I think a big part of it too is getting people to do the work today. And, everything takes work. And in the world of immediacy, in the world in which we live today, where we have everything at the press of a button. I mean, the fact that people pay for DoorDash and Uber Eats drives me up a wall. It drives me up. I've never used those services, and I never will. I will get in my car, drive to go get a pizza 5 minutes down the road. I'm not going to pay $27.50 to have it delivered to me. That is just sheer laziness. And the problem is that is rampant. And we're becoming comfortable in people doing everything for us. The fire service isn't built on a society like that. The people that are coming in to fill our firehouses, whether volunteer or career, are getting too comfortable in life and not realizing the amount of work that has to go into life. We need people in our firehouses that know how to do work. We don't need people in our firehouses ordering Uber Eats. It's an analogy. It's an example.
No, 100%. I get it.
But there's so much to that. And it's things like that keep me up at night. And it's things like that when I do my programs that I speak, I speak nationally with my Bridging the Gap program. It's been doing really well. It's a generational conversation between young and old and finding common ground. And that program has been doing really well. And it hits hard when I give it. And a lot of people really enjoy the program. And it has everything to do with addressing all the issues that we're talking about, but nobody's doing anything about it. And I'm not offering hard solutions. What I am saying, though, is we'll get the conversation started, but it's up to you to put the work in. You have to do the work. Absolutely. Nobody's going to do it for you, man.
Yeah.
No, nobody's going to do it for you.
100%. And I mean, that Uber Eats culture, you look at, it just popped up in my, remember when on my Facebook feed, my memories was when Jeffrey from Toys R Us was going away, and everybody all of a sudden was, oh my God, Toys R Us is going out of.
Right.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah, you're the one who put them out of business by by buying from Amazon online.
I
Like,
have a friend who
like
loves mom
that's
and
why
pop.
brick and mortar is dying.
Yeah, I have a good friend. He's a fireman, and he loves mom and pops. He loves going to the local hardware store. He likes to go and buy his chainsaw from the local guy, not Lowe's or Home Depot. And there's something to that. However, most of us don't, and I'm guilty of it, right? And I'll frequent a mom and pop if I can, but it's convenience wins every single time.
Yeah.
When you think of it, Nick, when you think about it this way, when you talk to somebody, you say, "Hey, what's going on?" You'd be like, "Oh man, I'm busy." We were talking about it before we hit record tonight. Busy.
Yep.
Busy. I didn't tell you that I wish I had more money in my bank account. I didn't say, "Man, I wish I had more money." I say, "Man, I wish I had more time." We value time today more than money. And in fact, we should be super rich when it comes to time, because you get to make your schedule. You get to fill your time card. And the thing is a lot of times we're filling it with nonsense. Yep. How much screen time do you have every day? How much scrolling are you doing? All that shit, right? We're clogging up our time. And then I always say, like, I'll say I'm super busy, and then a buddy calls me and wants to grab a cigar or grab a beer, and I'm like, yeah, I can squeeze that in tonight.
Like you said, we make time for...
We prioritize, right?
Yeah.
So if it's something we don't want to do, we don't prioritize it, and we're too busy to do it. And then, an hour later, I'm out, I don't know, having a beer, or I'm scrolling on my phone while I'm sitting on the couch. Yeah. What are your choices? And I guess, I don't know, I kind of been ranting here, but this is a lot of what and why National Fire Radio was founded, right? Like, the podcast itself was founded to protect the integrity of the job. It was to capture the stories of the senior man. And that's how it started. And, I was worried that too many guys were walking away from the fire service pissed off and disgruntled after many, many years of service. And their first 20 years, first 15 years are stellar years, great reputation, whether career or volunteer. And then towards the end, they're angry, pissed off, and disgruntled. They're arguing with the younger generation. They're not getting along with the administration. The administration has now wronged them, or they have a company boss that's inexperienced and shits all over them. And now they go from having a stellar career to the last couple of years in the firehouse being pissed off and disgruntled, and they're miserable. And then what do? They leave the fire service. And what happens to us? We lose every single ounce of knowledge and experience they've had. We lose it. So that was the idea with the podcast. I was a big podcast guy. I used podcasts to help grow my family business. I learned social media to help grow my family business. And that's really where I cut my teeth on understanding how to hack attention and so on. And so I felt that it was time to bring that to the fire service. I'm a student of the fire service, man. I grew up as a kid reading those magazines cover to cover. And in fact, what's hilarious today is, they just did an article on me in Firehouse magazine, which I think is hysterical, because that was my number one read, because as a kid, they had the hot shots in there. They had all the color photos.
Yep.
The apparatus were big and bright, the fire shot, the hot shots, right? They had that was the old school Firehouse magazine for me. So as a kid, 14, 15, 16 years old, that was the first publication. And then I would follow it up with fire engineering, but fire engineering at the time was too heady for me. I read it and tried to understand it, but until I got a couple of years later and understood more about the fire service, did I start reading that cover to cover 3-4 times a month. Yeah. And then I would save every one. Today, my fire engineering comes, I open the back page, I read Mike's column, I put it out to recycling. It's very, very different.
Yeah.
And if you look at the publication today, it is very, very different.
Very
and it
commercial.
It's changing with the times, right? People aren't spending money, and they are not, subscriptions are not up for magazines.
No.
They're down, and they're going to continually trend downward. So what do? You have to innovate. What the fire service wasn't doing, they weren't innovating. Yeah. And that's what I saw 7 years ago, when I started thinking about how I wanted to do this. I realized that the fire service wasn't innovating. They weren't finding a way to connect with the next generation. The next generation was not reading page 17 in a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do to get their attention? How do we capture it? And the things that I was doing for my business and growing sales based upon, learning how to hack social media and podcasts, I was like, I think we could bring this to the fire service. And that was really the idea from the get. And very quickly, we had some traction because I think we were firing on all cylinders as remedial as it was in the beginning. I mean, this was a makeshift set in my in-laws' garage with terrible sound and lighting and, guests that were guys that I looked up to in the fire service locally, some New Jersey fire guys, right? Like those are my original guests, man. And very quickly it became something more. And it's been a hell of a freaking ride, man. It's been fun.
All right. So that all being said, let's back up. Where did Jeremy grow up? What brought you to the fire service?
Yeah, man. I was that kid chasing fire trucks on my bicycle at 8 years old. Fire siren would blow. My father would run out of the house. He was a volunteer fireman for, I don't even know how many years now, 60 years, something like that.
Jeez.
And yeah, and he's still going. I mean, I just literally saw him on a call right before this episode. So yeah, he was driving a rescue. So, he's still there and he's a staple in our department. And I grew up in a house that was civic minded. My father was not just a fireman, but he was a councilman. He was mayor of our town for several years. He had a family business that I went into out of college, but I worked for it through college and high school and grade school. I mean, I grew up in the business and so on. But the fire service for me started at a very young age, man. I was that kid that had every Matchbox fire truck. Legos were all based upon building. I built like a mock city of Patterson and I mean, that was literally at like 10 years old, listening to
several times,
listening to the scanner of Patterson while I'm playing with my toys. Like that's legit. Yeah. That's real.
Yeah.
And that's how I got a real appreciation for it and love for it. And my father was very protective of it. As am I. And I want to go down this road because I think it's important. My father didn't allow me to come to the firehouse all the time. It was not a place for kids. It was not a place to come down and run crazy through the firehouse. This was a place of respect. It was a place where my father was able to unwind with his brothers. That back then they had beers in the firehouse. They did training night. They played poker till 3:00 in the morning, throwing some back. And that was the camaraderie and brotherhood of the fire service, especially the volunteer fire service in the 1980s. And that's when I was a kid. And so any opportunity I got to go to the firehouse was an absolute treat. Yeah. It wasn't every day. I wasn't allowed to run around that place every single day. But when I was able to go there, it was a place of absolute respect. And my father expected us to have incredible integrity and love for that firehouse and respect it. And we did. And one of the things that drives me nuts today is the lack of respect that other kids have for the firehouse.
Yeah.
Guys welcome their families in, and I love it. Like, I wish I was allowed to go there more. My kids were welcome at the firehouse quite often. My daughter just joined. We could talk about that if you want. 16 years old as a junior. She caught me off guard. I didn't think she was the last of my 4 kids, and she wanted to join, which totally caught me off guard. And we can talk about that, like I said, if you want. But my point is this: when my kids were there as little kids, they weren't allowed to just run around, run on the furniture, run out into the garage and jump through the trucks and flip buttons and levers and all that shit. Like, no freaking way, man. This is not a playground. And listen, I'll take a stand on this, man. Like, there are guys that let their kids free reign in these firehouses. Shame on you. It's one thing to let them in the firehouse and to show them around and show them the great pride and respect you have for the equipment and the building and the people and the equipment. Don't let them run around. Don't turn the place into a playground. That drives me up a wall. And I think I'm very grateful for what my father instilled in me and my brothers, because I have 2 older brothers. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. We all became firemen.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, and we all rode our bikes after the fire trucks, and we all rode our bikes after the fire chief, and the fire chief would get on scene and yell at us to go home. Like I mean, I have so many memories of going to fires and chasing the trucks through town and pulling, riding up on a lawn and there's a fire and there's my dad like stretching a line. I remember right on the main road in town on a Monday night. It was a drill night. We have drill nights every Monday night. And the building supply, it's like before Home Depot was a thing or Lowe's was a thing, every town had like a building supply store, right? So it's like lumber and, anything you need, right? Kind of like the mom and pop Home Depot. Yeah. And I remember they had like a big tower in the back off the one garage, and that thing was sailing, man. And I remember as a kid, like it wasn't too far from where we lived. So my mother walked up there with the 3 boys. And I remember just seeing this place flaming away. I mean, just rocking. I had to be probably 8, 10 years old. And who do I see but my father, like coming out of a window onto the roof to take a blow. And then he just like goes back in. And like when you look at that as a kid, man, that is like Superman.
Yep.
Like that was my hero. He was everything to me. He is today too. I mean, he's just an incredible guy. But man, that was it for me. I was like, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. There was nothing else that I thought I wanted to be. Maybe a cop. I went to college for criminal justice only because I didn't go for fire science because I just didn't pursue fire science. It wasn't a thing for me. So I ended up going for criminal justice and so on. But growing up, the images of my father, working the fireground and so on was just super pivotal for me and in my love for the fire service. But just to circle back, I think it's how he instilled the respect of what the fire service stands for. That's what he did for me. It was not a place of, I don't know, it was to provide a service and to show respect for the job and nothing more.
It was a place of business.
It was, and it was a place that you were there to give, not to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So along those same lines, my and you'll love it. So there was a group of fire companies and the older men, the old timers back then in the 80s and 90s, World War II vets. And they would do, to get out of their house because they were all retired, they would do breakfast at this firehouse, and then they would do lunch at this firehouse, and then the next day they went to this firehouse for breakfast, then they went to this firehouse, so that their wives could never catch them.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, my dad would bring me up when they were doing lunch. I guess he's great uncle was one of the founding members at East Freehold Fire Company. And he would always cook, and a couple other guys would take turn cooking lunch when it was East Freehold's turn to host lunch. And my dad would bring me up, and you sat at the table. Yes, please. No, thank you. Yes, sir. No, sir. And may have had my first glass of wine there, because little kids, they chug. But
listen,
like these
I get
old
it.
guys were,
I love it.
These guys were all about it. And I would go out and I was that kid that I was opening cabinets of the fire trucks to learn the tools and to learn where they went.
I think what's really important with all that is that it's a foundation that breeds what we need and want in the fire service. And when it's done correctly, when you're parented correctly, when you're led correctly, that is where you see the most growth and where you have the most protection for the integrity of this job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when we take things for granted, or we don't appreciate the process, or we don't take our time to understand the informalness but formalness of the fire service. There's a pecking order, and then there's an informal pecking order, and it's understanding all of that, understanding the players and the characters and who fits in where and whose voice is stronger than the other guy. But if I need to go to this guy for something else, I'm going to go to him because I know he's stronger in that. Like,
yeah,
and the only way, Nick, you get to learn all that is to allow yourself to be part of that process. And I don't think enough people are putting enough time in to understand those nuances of what the fire service is truly all about.
Absolutely.
That's one of my biggest concerns.
Absolutely. Well, and again, I think that goes to the generational of, well, he's doing this, so why I can't do it? Like this guy doesn't have to sweep him up. Why do I have to sweep him up? Because that's how it works. You just walked in the door. That guy's been here for 60 years.
Yeah, I think a part of that too, right, is like a lot of departments fall down on not setting the expectation up front. And I think that is a big, big part of where the disconnect is. And
Absolutely.
if we take for granted that people understand the intricacies of the fire service before they're even a part of the fire service.
Because think about it, up until maybe a decade ago, you either had family in the fire service or you came in as a close friend of somebody who had family in the fire service. So you had those we don't really have that anymore. Like,
no, but
not to the scale that we used to have it.
But we also have guys that have no relations to the fire service come in and they're rock stars. And we have 25-year-old kids coming into the fire service and they are rock stars. And the reason is one, foundation matters from where they come, and you hope that they have a good foundational system behind them of please and thank you, morals, ethics, and values. Those things matter. But the other thing too is we're letting our people down every single day in most firehouses across this country. We are not setting an expectation. We are not putting in the work. The senior guys that put work in on me, we don't have those guys today putting the work in on the new kids.
No.
But we're going to hold them to the same traditional values, even though they're not getting the same type of response or work being put into them. And that's not fair to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we'll do is we'll point the finger, because we always like to blame because we don't want to blame ourselves. So we'll point the finger and blame somewhere else. Meanwhile, all you have to do is put together a set of expectations that on day one, when they walk in, there is consistency and cohesion in your message. And if they don't know they're supposed to mop the floor, and then you ride them for not mopping the floor, how the fuck are they going to know that?
100%.
We have to do a better job, and we're getting lazy and we're getting sloppy in our firehouses. We're getting lazy and sloppy because we don't want to put the work in. It takes more work today to run a good cultured firehouse than ever before. And the problem is we'd much rather complain about the culture not being there instead of doing something about it.
100%. 100%.
It's frustrating. And don't get me wrong, like when I sit here and talk about this, when I do my program, one of the first slides I put up in my program says, I'm guilty. I'm guilty of all this. I'm not sitting here, and I hate when people are like, preach. I'm not preaching. What I'm saying is I'm just speaking the truth. And I suffer at that. I think about when I was young, we'd come back from calls and we would spend 20, 30 minutes at the firehouse after each run, and you would hear a story or two. We'd have some laughs. We'd go through the truck. We'd pull a piece of equipment out. We spent time, and the older guys spent the time with us to teach us and train us, whether informally or formally. We don't get that today. I come back from runs, and I'm like, I got to go, guys. I'll see you later. I'm valuing my time over the time of putting in on the front bumper or back step for those new kids. How dare I ruin or not impact them like I've been impacted? I should be taking the time and making it a priority to pay it forward. None of us are doing it because we're putting ourselves first. We're putting our needs first.
100%.
That's where we're losing.
Yeah.
We got to do a better job at it, bro.
I agree. 100%. 100%.
So that's my take on life. Now it's
right,
good.
So tell me a little bit about Franklin Lakes Fire Company. Introduce the fire department to.
So Franklin Lakes is a sleepy bedroom community, Bergen County, New Jersey, 25 minutes from the George Washington Bridge, right across the river from Manhattan, if you will. A lot of it's an upper middle class to upper class neighborhood. I was fortunate enough to live here as a kid. And I've been able to raise my children here as well. So I'm fortunate that I can live in such a beautiful community, no doubt. When it comes to the fire service, it's 100% volunteer, 2 stations. We go on about 600 to 700 runs a year, I think, give or take. On a good year, I think we're higher, like up on the higher end, and so on. But we don't run any medical, no first response, no first aid, no first response, none of that shit. It's all structural and rescue calls and things like that. But 100% volunteer. And then we got 2 stations. We're about 2/3 hydrant, 1/3 non-hydrant. We run a bunch of engines, squad engine, heavy rescue, got a rear mount straight stick. We run a pumper tanker at my house. We have a pumper tanker because part of my area is non-hydrant. And then I got another engine in there and a utility. So we got more equipment than we know what to do with. Town is, I don't know, 9 square miles. We cover state highway and a main interstate. 287 runs through our district, which gives us some work, fires, underrides, good pins, things like that. Not every day, but there's consistent work up there, and then we have another highway that we cover, which we get a lot of nuisance car fires, things like that out there. But a lot of it is smells and bells, and a lot of it is your typical suburban community type calls. We got a good mutual aid system here. We go to a decent amount of fires. Between first due, we'll probably have maybe 3 to 5 a year in our first due. If 3 to 5 probably first due fires. Could be as could be a Rubin contents to whatever, anything larger. And I should say too, structural fires here are basically commercial building fires. You're talking 5, 6, 7, 10, 12,000 square foot homes, large setbacks, big open areas. My house could probably fit in the foyer of some of these houses. So you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then we got a great mutual aid system. We do a lot of work with the towns around us. We border Passaic County too. We're 2 towns away from Patterson. So we run the Patterson a bunch on cover assignments. We run 2 other Passaic County towns. We do, and then Northwest Bergen County we run. So we get a fair share. Guys we're probably going to, I don't know, 20, 30 fires a year, whether it's first due or mutual aid, across the mutual aid or what have you. Not all of it's, first due work, but there's enough to keep us interested.
Hey, I think that's about average for,
I think so.
In upper middle class.
Yeah.
Upper class, upper middle class.
Yeah, we're not doing, we're not setting the world on fire here. And frankly, I'm kind of glad we're not, because don't get me wrong. I'd love to go to more fires. I love going to fires.
That's absolutely.
But as a home response department, we are teetering right now with manpower issues.
Okay.
Staffing is really starting to become an issue here. You're talking 2, 3-man engine companies now, and we're getting 1 and 1 out on a call instead of 2 and 1 or 3 and 1. And that could even be for a structural fire too. So, we have a full second alarm box that will come in on any confirmed fire in town. Our cards are always stacked. We always get 2 trucks on a job, no matter what. Fast team on any confirmed fire, and then we additional engine companies and so on. So we're very proficient and proactive in our area when it comes to loading up the boxes for fires and confirmed fires. There's no doubt.
Okay.
Pretty active and progressive. Chiefs go to work by us. So chiefs report into the command post with SCBA. They go to work. We don't stand around and watch people's houses burn down. They did that 20, 30 years ago. We don't do that here anymore. It's just not tolerated. You don't want to put it back on. Sure. Don't show up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really good fire culture. One of the things I'm very proud of with my department is the amount of career firemen that we put out. We put out career firemen all the time. And, I'm trying to just do quick math in my head, but in my 30, I'll be coming up 30 years on the fire in the fire service. This coming February will be 30 years for me. And I'm thinking about how many career guys we've put out, and we've put out a ton, and a lot of them have come through my firehouse. And I'm very proud of that. And I think that Frankie Lakes has always had a great culture in producing good firemen. And I think that that's like a feather in our cap. And as much as our staffing is waning, we're an upper middle class neighborhood, and we have kids with 4-year college degrees that went away to college, but all they want to do is be firemen because their home fire department has taught them
Instilled that
how
love.
great the job can be and is. And I'm very proud of that. And we have some guys in high places in some of the biggest cities. And it's just fun to watch these kids come in, fall in love with the process, fall in love with the fire service, and then they end up making it a career. And I think that is a true feather in the cap for any volunteer department across the country that has a success rate of guys promoting to go to making what was volunteer to become their career.
Absolutely,
I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do.
Absolutely. 100%.
So it's fun, man. I enjoy it. It's fun. A lot of nuisance calls. Like I said, we do a lot of bullshit calls. And being a home response department like we are, we could go out once a day or no times a day. And then other days we're going out 7, 8, 9 times a day.
Yeah.
So there's, it's hit or miss. I've ridden in on structural fires, driver only with, across town. And we've ridden in with crews of 6. So it's a pretty diverse, and you never know what you're going to get.
Now, you were saying your department has 2 houses.
2
Are
stations.
they separate?
One department, so we go on everything.
So you can
together.
ride out of either house?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And it's all home response. Nobody goes to the scene. Everybody goes to the firehouse.
Okay.
So, yeah, only chief officers, and they all have vehicles. They go to the scene. Everybody else responds from home to the firehouse to get the apparatus out. We staff the trucks and go.
Okay. All right.
So,
and you're a past chief, ex-chief, right?
I am. I was a terrible chief. I was a terrible officer. I was a terrible chief. If you asked me back then, I would have told you I was the best thing that's ever happened to the fire service. Today, I realized that I was too young and immature to truly do that job, the respect and firemanship that it deserved. And that is one thing that I would love to one day get back into that seat and do the job right. I've come a very long way in my career, and I'm a different man today than I was, let alone 5 years ago, let alone 10, 20, 30 years ago. And I was chief in 2007.
Okay. Wow.
I was 27 years old, chief of department. I was assistant chief for 3 years. So prior to that, I was assistant chief from 24 to 27. Our chief terms are 3 years. Okay. I stepped down after my first year as chief because I actually grew up and realized that my family was more important at the time. And my wife was home with 4 kids and 2 were under 2. And so after my first year of being chief of department, which was one of the most important milestones I had in the volunteer fire service, I came home one night and told my wife I wasn't running for a second year. And she was shocked, but I said, it's the right thing to do for our family. And from there, I have never gone back. So they bust my chops.
I will say that takes a lot to, 1, to do it.
Yeah.
And 2, to look back and say what you said. You know what? I fucked up. I wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't
what I should have been. But
yeah, it was more of that, and it was also more of understanding that life is bigger than the volunteer firehouse. And for a long time, the volunteer firehouse ruled my life. And I think a lot of guys understand what I'm talking about. We have guys that base where they will buy a house or where they'll move based upon the volunteer fire service.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild. And I'm not saying it's wrong. What I am getting at is that is the passion and commitment people have for the volunteer fire service. And I don't know if any other type of group or organization has that kind of hold on their members. When you think about the sacrifices that volunteer firefighters make.
Yeah.
And there are all types of organizations, right, within the volunteer fire service. Ours is a very good traditional-based, proactive firemanship type department, and we're very proud of that. This is not a pancake hall. This isn't. It's none of that. We don't. It's none of that. this is, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I am getting at is
No, I get what you're saying.
people are
Yeah.
so committed and dialed in because of this organization that they're willing to make life important decisions based upon the volunteer firehouse.
Yeah.
You have to take that message and convey that to your politicians in town, your council people, your mayor, your fire commissioners, your boards. You have to explain to them that it's not the library committee or the recreation department, that this is a volunteer fire department, that people prioritize the safety of the residents and visitors to this community more than their own. That's an important part of the conversation. And guys can't afford to live in town, so they'll move right outside of town to be able to get back here quick enough instead of just joining the next town over's department. Think about that. That is batshit crazy. So it's important. And the institution of the volunteer fire service is super important. And we have to be very, very protective of that. And I think that we've gotten sloppy with that too. And I don't know if the guys have the same amount of care or passion that was once here. Maybe they do. Maybe I just don't see it as much. Maybe there's not as many guys, so you don't sense it as much. I don't know. But I know my time in 2007 when I stepped down after 1 year as chief, because I realized my home life was more important. My marriage was more important. My children were more important. My career at the time was more important. I had to take a step back. It's not that I disappeared. I still ran out on every call that I could, but it just meant that I couldn't do meetings. I couldn't do planning. I couldn't do scheduling. I couldn't do all those things that are extra. I couldn't do it. And as much as it broke my heart to step away, that was a moment for me where I realized, like, good job, Jay. You're fucking growing up here. You know?
No, I hear you, man.
I'd
really
love to
do.
come back. I'd love to be a chief again. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed being an assistant chief. When I was assistant chief, I was hands on, and I loved the assistant chief on our fire grounds, or the ops boss, and it's their sandbox. And so, you know, our chief is there for resource and safety and assigning, incoming companies and things like that. But it's the operations chief that is literally running that sandbox. And that was, to me, the best position ever. I need another engine company, grab them. I need that truck to go open up. You guys got to get up there. I need searches done. Like, that is the best job, I think, on the fire ground. I loved being an operations chief. It was watching everything come together. And at that time for me too, with the mutual aid, I was super active there. We rewrote alarm policies and radio communication policies, and we started standardizing how departments were operating. And it was really a big sales pitch. I had to go into these departments and meetings and sell this new idea of what we were doing. It was a fun time, man, but it consumed me. It absolutely consumed me. For what? Doesn't pay my bills. Doesn't put groceries on my table. And we do it because we have a tremendous passion for it. And I also think we do it because we're a little bit selfish. It's a little bit of our ego. It's a little bit of who we are. And, leaving your mark, leaving your stamp, I think is important. And I still do that as much as I can, Yeah.
Obviously. I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, National Fire Radio is fun. I never... it's funny. People ask me, they go, did you ever think it was going to become what? Yeah, I did, actually. I thought that there was a huge market for something more. I thought it was missing. What I didn't understand, but I greatly appreciate today, and I am so conscious and protective of it, is the relationships that have formed because of it. I'm allowed into inner circles and back rooms that, these are guys that I read their articles growing up, and they've shaped me as a firefighter. They shaped me. My knowledge base were guys that, I read their articles, I read their books, and now I'm in chat circles with them, and I talk with them, and we're friends, and we share a laugh, and we have phone calls. And I sit there and sometimes pinch myself, but I will tell you this, man, that means the world to me. And I am super, super protective of those relationships. And the trust that is instilled in me from so many, I will never violate any of that. I just couldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have it on a much smaller scale than you have, but
bro, we all started somewhere.
The relationships that I've formed with the 39 other, and the relationships I had with them before, is, amazing. It was actually weird. I was at Long Branch's cigar dinner this year,
I wanted to
and
go. They sent me a nice message, asked if I wanted. I would have loved to have been there. I had a conflicting event the same night, so I didn't get there. But
it's a
anyway,
great
go ahead.
time.
Yeah, no, it looks great. Yeah.
So I see one of the guy, a younger guy that I works per diem in Plainsboro. I know him, different circles and stuff like that. I know him from, and I knew that he was on the list working towards getting in Evesham, where I'm living now.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Heisler, who I had on one of the shows earlier, a few months back, was sitting right there, and I'm like, "Hey, Andrew, why don't you come over here? This is Lieutenant Heisler. He works in Evesham. Uh, you know, uh, Andrew was working on, trying to get there and took the test." He's like, "Yeah, I was just reading his resume the other day," and built that bond. And then Andrew turns around and goes, "Oh, hey, this is," to the kid that he was standing with, goes, "This is Nick Palumbo from the NJ Fire Guys podcast. This
Love
is
it.
the show we were watching the other night."
Yeah,
And like I was like, "Whoa, wait, what?"
it's cool.
It was, and to see that, not that my name's getting out there, but to see that the guys that have been on the show, because every guest has a story
Sure.
and has a message that they're telling and has to tell.
That
And,
is a big part of where I'm coming from. Everybody's got a story, whether it's the biggest name in the fire service that's recognized in the 1-2% clubs that teach nationally, or the guy that puts his head down, goes to work every day or volunteers every day, and he's a kick-ass fireman and everybody knows it. Everybody's got a story, and we need to be sharing all the stories.
and the state of New Jersey is full of them.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, New Jersey is a small state with a big love for the fire service, and we've just had tremendous people come out of our culture here.
Yeah,
it's great, man. It's great. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, you look how many of them are over on the other side of the river. You look at how many are spread throughout the country. Anthony Rowett, Tony Keller, who's a deputy chief down in Mobile, Joe Palumbi out, and and you can go on. But anybody who's watched more than 5 episodes of the show has heard me say where I came up with the idea for the show was every conference I went to, every show I went to, every class I took out of state, somebody came up and was like, "Oh, hey, where in Jersey are you from?" And it turned out they were from New Jersey.
All
and they were a
roads lead
fireman
back.
somewhere else.
Yes, sir.
And
all roads lead back.
So
it's a good place to be. I love it here. I love my volunteer firehouse. I had opportunities to be a career fireman many years ago when I was in college. I volunteered up at Fairview Fire District in Poughkeepsie, New York, in the 90s. And when I was in college, and if I wasn't in the bar, I was up at the firehouse. And that was my college. I threw away a Division I lacrosse career because I had fat, drunk, and lazy in life. It was a time that I needed to reflect and figure out life. I was a hell of an athlete, and I threw that away. And then I found my way to the firehouse, and it was a small combination department at the time. They're bigger now, mostly career. I don't think they even have any. They might have a few volunteers left. I don't know. But when I was there was only a handful of kids from college that were volunteers there for the most part. And I became a regular, and I rode out with the career guys all the time. I bunked in with them. I cooked with them. I was one of them. And I really enjoyed my time there. And I went to a lot of fires there. Weekends were fun. It was, you guaranteed to run a bit and typically catch fires. And so we caught a bunch of fires back then. Poughkeepsie at the time, I mean, it was like burned up, boarded up, or burned down, boarded up, or empty lot, on some of the neighborhoods. And so there was, we caught a bunch of work up there. I enjoyed my time up there for sure. And while I was going through college, I had the opportunity to get hired there. I took the test and I deferred it, and then I've deferred it again. And, there was opportunity, but I was also a kid that was starting to grow up and mature. And I realized that if I didn't finish college and I took the career job, I would have never went back to college. And at the time, my parents paid for my education. I felt that I owed it to them. And so I stayed thinking that, well, I wanted to go home anyway, get hired by the FDNY or get hired off the New Jersey Civil Service test. And so I came home, tested all over, took the New Jersey test, and so on. And then the economy had some hiccups, and I was with the family business. And long story short, I had to make a decision. I chose the family business, and I knew that day that my career fire service was over. And I regret that. Yeah. I miss it. I could have been I could have been retired, several years ago already as a kid. I could have got hired at 20 years old, my first go. And that would have been incredible, but it wasn't in the cards. And I don't dwell on many things. I think I would have loved it. I think I would have been a good career fireman. I think it certainly is in me, and it's something that I think I missed out on for sure. But that was also part of how I got to where I am now.
And, I was just going to say.
Yeah. So, life is funny, and, the family business was good to me for many years. We ended up selling it. And I work for the company that acquired us, and I work for them. And so I still do that outside of National Fire Radio and the Firehouse and my family and 4 kids and all these things. I still work for them, and I still travel a ton for them, and so on. So, and that was kind of what led me to National Fire Radio. And I think if I went the career route, I probably would never started National Fire Radio, and I probably would have been a good career fireman and retired. And I don't, maybe I'd be fishing right now. I don't know what I'd be doing. But I probably wouldn't have started this. And I'm very grateful for what we've been able to do with this. And I say there's other guys that certainly are part of this that helped me on the back end. And as we grow into 25, I was kind of telling you some things with 25 coming up. We got some really big stuff happening, and it's going to take a team.
You want to talk about it? Tell everybody.
Not yet, brother.
No? All right.
You asked me in the beginning. You go, hey, anything you don't want to talk about? That's going to be one of the things. There's a couple great things that are in the works. And when it's time to share, we will for sure. And we're gonna hit the go button, and it's gonna be pretty wild. But the one thing I learned, I'll be honest with you, the one thing I learned, I used to tell everybody everything, right? And then if I didn't pull it off, you feel like you let everyone down, or more importantly, you let yourself down.
Yeah.
And I'm a creative guy. My brain's going 100 miles an hour, and I'm coming up with 150 ideas, every 10 minutes. And so, to think I want to do this, and then I want to do that, and we're going to do this, and then you put some legwork in, and then it goes to the back burner because you start something else. The last thing I want to do is tell people we're doing one thing and we don't get to it, or we don't do it. And and so I've been more intentional about keeping things to myself and to our crew, and so on. But I will say there are some really great things coming. So when they're ready, I will certainly put it out there for people. But back to what I was saying, man. I'm grateful for what we've been able to build. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have. I'm grateful to be to become a voice for the fire service, and I'm proud of that. And I'm very protective of that. And I think that is one of the things that, if I can stress to anybody, I mean, I said to you, congratulations on 39 episodes, this being number 40. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to accept responsibility for not just your actions, but your words too, because sometimes you can get carried away, and sometimes you're going to put yourself in a bad spot. You have to be very protective of the brand and what you're building. And I have been, and I am fiercely protective of what we've built and our reputation. There are certainly haters out there that from day one haven't liked me. They don't like me. They don't like the platform, and that's fine. There's haters in every firehouse, every culture in the world. I don't care. That's fine. You're not going to stop me. You're not going to slow me down. I don't care. You think it's important to tell me what you think? That's great. It's okay. I have the thickest skin around. It doesn't bother me. I've been kicked in the teeth. The one thing about me is I know how to get kicked in the teeth. So what do you do with it? It's more fuel. So kick me as much as you want. I promise you I'm coming back 10 times harder. And I think that's a really important thing to talk about. And that's why I'm so protective. And that's why I think we've had the success we've had with National Fire Radios, because I'm fiercely protective and fiercely loyal of what the mission is, and that is putting the fire service above myself.
Yeah.
That's it. I always say this: doing the right thing is always doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You'll never make the wrong decision if you take yourself out of the equation. If you always make the decision based upon fact and what's happening in front of you and your training and experience, and you put that into your decision making, and your decision is based on the mission and not you, you'll make the right decision. It's only when you insert yourself into the conversation will you typically make the wrong decision.
Yep, absolutely.
I make bad decisions all the time. I leave money on the table. I'm not the best business guy in the world. I make the wrong decisions. Shit like that happens all the time. What do you do with it? Do you learn from it? You pick yourself up? Do you go get it again? Or do you roll over and cry about it? Most people roll over and cry. People ask me all the time, hey, I want to start a podcast. Hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to do that. I'm like, awesome. Go do it. You got any tips? No. I mean, okay, have a plan. Figure out what you want to talk about. Have some direction, right? But you know all that already. The hardest part, hit record. And then the tougher part is hit it again and again and again. That's hard, man. There are still days 6 years in. I got 600-700 episodes of podcasts out there.
Crazy.
And when you think about that, I still have days when I don't want to hit record. I still have days with the imposter syndrome. I still have days where I don't feel that I'm worthy. There are days that I don't feel that my message wants to be received. There are days that I just don't want to do it. What do? You go do it.
Go do it.
That's it. You go do it. If it's that important, go do it. So it's been an incredible experience and a hell of a ride. And I am super grateful for opportunities. Even tonight. I mean, this is important to me. You know, I was apologizing up and down for the last 2 days. You're like, hey, can you send me a bio? Can you send me some pictures? And I'm like, bro, I don't really do that stuff. Like, let's just go. You want to rap? Like, let's go. You know? That is the gist of it. And I love it. I love the fire service today, 30 years later. And 30 years as a fireman, there's another 10 years built into that I grew up with it and falling in love with it. And I'm grateful for it. It is a big part of who I am. I talk about it a lot, and I say, a lot of people say it doesn't define me. It's not who I am. I need my separation. That's fine. I tend to find that it's my lifestyle. The people I talk to, the things I do, the places I go, the friendships I have, the places I want to be.
Yeah.
It's all about the fire service. So
when I go back to Freehold and I bump into people I went to school with, they don't even ask me what I do for a living. Right. They don't ask me because they're not going to be surprised. They like, I asked them what and they're like, so you're a fireman? I'm like, yep.
Yeah. Should be very proud of that.
Love it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
All right. So
what else? That's it? You giving up on me?
No, not at all. What do you got? Tell me more about your experiences.
I mean,
you said you have two older brothers that are also in the fire service?
Oh yeah.
Your dad and brothers have ever been a crew?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Growing up and not only that, but we would when we all lived at home still, we would still take 4 cars to the firehouse.
That was me, my brother, and my father.
We don't carpool. Like
no.
I tried that once or twice and realized like you guys are slowing me down. We had a thing where the first due engine would roll out with 6 before the siren stopped winding down.
Nice.
It was like it was 100 miles an hour to get there. Run into the fire, sprint across the parking lot, go in, pager and keys to the floor, shoes off, pants on, running to the truck, throwing your coat on and your helmet and getting in, and you'd be the last guy in the truck and we're going out the door. Like that was my indoctrination to the volunteer fire service. And then the other station where I'm actually assigned now, I moved after I moved out of my parents' house, went to college, moved back for a couple of years. And then when I moved to, actually, I take it back. I moved out of town for like 3 years, and then I moved back to town.
Okay.
And I live on the other side of town, so I'm in the other station. But I used to lifeguard over there at a country club, and they had open cab Maxims, 70s, Ooh. Yellow. Ooh. They were so loud. The floorboards were rusted out of them. We would turn the corners. The cabinet doors would open up and shit would fall out. We had to reinforce the compartments with plywood and, strap everything down. I mean, crazy shit. But man, there was nothing better than riding an open cab truck. And that truck vibrated like you wouldn't believe, man. And if you put your leg up against the engine compartment in the summertime, you burned your leg. You got a 2nd and 3rd degree burn on your leg if you left it there long enough. I mean, that's what it was. And it was so freaking cool. And it's those memories, like the nostalgia of, I think that's the one thing about the fire service. Nostalgia is so important. If you've gotten to experience some of that older school stuff, hip boots, long coats, open cabs, back step. I rode on the back step of our mini pumper for a couple times before we put a big sign on it, no rear step riding, and then, then it was, we could ride the rear step to the fire, but on the way back, you would have to ride in a rescue truck on the way back, like that type of bullshit, right? Yeah. Like it's okay at 1,000 miles an hour on the back, right? It was that, but I did get to ride the rear step, on the mini pumper for a little while and stuff. So it was a really good upbringing in the fire service. And I want to say this too. We had fun. Like, I feel like today we're not having as much fun. And that sucks, man. Like, I know it's serious business and I get all that. And I don't need anybody to get preachy on me. Like, oh, it's not about fuck you. Like, here's the thing. It's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to have laughs. We're supposed to have camaraderie and the brotherhood and the fun stuff and going to calls and after fires and all that. Part of the process is falling in love with it. And when you fall in love with a woman, you're giggly and flirty and all those things. Yeah. Why are we taking that away from our people today? Like, why are we not enjoying it as much as we used to? When I was young, God, I loved it, man. I still do, but it's a different love for it today. And unfortunately, times do change and rules change and permissions change. I get all that. But I want to just say this, like, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Like you're missing out. If going to the firehouse or going out on a call or a training is a chore, fix that. Fix it. You can fix that. It can be fixed. Are you willing to put in the work to fix it? Fall in love with this. I talk about the job. The job is volunteer career. It's going to fires. It's the job. Fall in love with it, man. Like 100%. It's okay. It's absolutely okay. And in fact, we need you to, because I think when you're in love with something, you're not willing to compromise for it. You're protective of it. Yep. And it's unconditional. And I think we've become conditional. And I think that's why we don't have the romantic stage anymore with the fire service. And a lot of guys don't fall in love with it like I did or like you did. And we want them to fall in love with the process. And on the flip side of that, don't get in the way of people. Let them fall in love with it. We have absolute shitbags in our firehouses today that are holding people back from falling in love with the fire service because their ego or their inabilities get in the way. And shame on you, because if you're holding people back from something that they could fall in love with and excel at, like I said, man, we put out a lot of career firemen in our volunteer house. If you have a shitty fire culture, if you don't practice firemanship and you don't prioritize the importance of firefighting, you're not going to put out career firefighters.
Yeah.
And if you have people standing in your way, people that don't want you to continually train or do better or hang out. I remember as a young kid, we used to battle with this one old guy that lived across the street. He would tie knots in the blinds so we couldn't lower the blinds. It would drive him nuts if we closed the blinds and he couldn't look through the windows from across the street. He was a beautiful man and he loved the firehouse, but he hated the young kids hanging out there all the time. What more do you want than people in your building? Like, what are we doing? Like, the conversation is skewed. Back then, we had enough people to push back against that. Today, we have guys tying knots in the blinds, and it's preventing people from falling in love with the process.
Yeah.
And we got to get away from that. We got to, you don't have the right or the permission to block somebody's love for the fire service. If you're holding people back, you're a big part of the problem. You need to be promoting your people. You need to be telling your people yes and giving them every tool they need to love this job. That's it, bro.
Well, here you go. You're from North Jersey, so I know that I'll get a connection on this one. Wet downs. How many departments are being now? I understand hosting a wet down this day and age, like it used to be, huge liability waiver, blah 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 blah. But when somebody's having one, and a young guy or even like a middle of the range guy comes up to the chief and is like, "Hey, I got a bunch of young guys that want to go to this wet down or parade." Nope, too much liability. It's too much liability to go to another town and celebrate that. You know what? I'll put an underage wristband on every one of them, and none of us will drink. We still can't go? No. Why?
It's easier to say no.
Exactly. It's easier to say no.
That's it. I talk about that in my program. I have a big picture of Nancy Reagan, and it says, "Just say no." That was her campaign. That was her campaign back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Just say no to crack, right? We need to start creating cultures where we say yes. Let your people be firemen. Let them do things. Let them run. Feed them. Give them what they need. Say yes. Yes is empowering. But the problem with yes, Nick, is people that aren't comfortable with their own skills and abilities will never say yes because it comes down to control. And you let go of control when you say yes. So the more you say no, the more you keep control. That is why your poor leaders, your poor bosses, administrators, chiefs, and every level in between, those are the guys that are always saying no. It's because they are not confident in their own skills and abilities.
Yep.
To let you say yes, to be told yes.
Yeah, I've had chiefs and officers tell me no to go to, going to training.
I believe it's all over the place.
Like I'm not talking about going to independent contractors training class or anything like. I'm talking about going to a sanctioned fire academy class. No. Yeah. What do you need to learn that for? Because it might save my life one day? I don't know.
Well, it's because they're insecure. They're not willing to put the work in themselves. They don't want to better educate themselves. So how dare you want to better yourself, because you're only going to end up showing me up because I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's a problem in our fire service. It's a problem. If you find yourself saying no often, you're part of the problem. If you're holding your people back, you're not promoting your people and letting them have some latitude and letting them fall in love with the job, you're part of the problem. If you're not enjoying your firehouses, you're not enjoying your time at the firehouse anymore, you're not having fun, you're part of the problem.
100%.
You got to just do the work, man. It's a good institution, and it can always be better. The reason why it was so good for us and we're in love with the nostalgia of what it was growing up and falling in love with it was solely because it allowed us to fall in love with it. We got kids today that come in, they want to join, and they don't know what the expectations are. They don't know what where they fit in. And we don't lend them a hand. We don't lend them an olive branch to say, listen, I'm going to take you under my wing. Come over here, bro. Yeah. I'm going to show you around. I'm going to tell you. No, we don't do that anymore. We are setting our people up for failure. We have to do better at that. And when I say we, it's me too. I am guilty.
Yeah. I
am guilty. Yeah. Yeah.
I just
So,
had a
mhm.
conversation. I talked to this kid for an hour and 45 minutes. It was a kid that grew up in the firehouse that I was in. I was in the company with his father, his uncle, and his grandfather was a 62-year member, rest his soul.
Wow.
And this kid grew up, turned 18, went into the Air Force, became a fireman in the Air Force, got and he was down at Andrews Air Force Base. He was volunteering in Prince George's County. I can't remember what company he was in. Was living in the firehouse, was loving life, everything. And I'm having a conversation with him yesterday. First of all, I've known this kid since he was probably born, at least in diapers. This is the longest conversation I've ever had with him.
Right.
And he's telling me, how he still devotes his life to, even though now he's a career fireman on the civilian side in the Department of Defense, but he still loves being a volunteer because he still loves doing the job.
Mhm.
And but but how sustainable is it? He's like, I see what it's like down here in the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area. He goes, but how, he's like, I can't even think about this being sustainable in New Jersey. He goes, there's too
There's
much, anti-culture, if you
Yeah,
will.
I think so, but I also think there's pockets of incredible culture, and there's
Oh,
departments
absolutely.
that excel, and I'm thinking of a few right off the top of my head, and I could name them if I were to do that. I'm not going to do that, but I could name them, and I know why they work, because they're fiercely protective of their process. They don't allow the negativity to run. They don't
Yeah,
ever put shitbags in a position because they don't have shitbags because they can't last there. Good cultures weed those people out informally, and it has nothing to do with blackballing or code reds or anything else. It has everything to do with a shitbag's not going to hang around an environment that doesn't allow him to flourish. So if you're constantly training and
yeah,
you're constantly, doing firemanship things and you're promoting your people and wanting more out of your people and the expectation is high,
yeah,
no slacker is going to stay in that environment. They can't.
yeah.
That is why I'm
Well, and
always,
that's career volunteer. That's
but that is why I'm
either.
always leery. I am always leery when people leave one department to go to another.
Yeah. Well, see, I had the reverse experiences. I had the fire chief that when I showed up when I was 19 years old at a fire, he would hold my hand, and I wasn't allowed to go near the building
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't trust me. He was afraid of what I would do, but he would literally stand at the command post and hold me by the wrist physically, and it killed it. And other personalities similar to that, I quit that department and went to the one next door.
I get
That
that,
allowed that
and
allowed those young, passionate
no,
guys
I
to
totally get that.
flourish.
I totally get that. And there are guys, and I say it all the time, try to put the work in at your own place before you jump ship. Sometimes you have to jump ship. I'm not saying you don't. What I'm saying is I'm looking at the people that bounce from department to department, and I think they're trying to find a place where they could just fit in. And a lot of times it's not for the right reasons.
Yeah,
And I look at it this way: if you get bounced or you leave a department that's got a good reputation, chances are it's not the department, bro. It's you.
bingo, bingo.
It's the same thing with the guy that pounds his chest and says, I deserve respect around here. I'm not getting the respect I deserve. Well, probably because you're a piece of shit. That's why. It's
Probably
very
because you don't
simple.
respect any you deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very simple. Like we have complicated the system. We have complicated our firehouses, and it's getting harder and harder to navigate these spaces.
Hmm.
This is where we need clear minds, get the feelings out of the firehouses, and talk facts. That's it. If we can do that, we're going to be okay. And everything innovates, and things always change. So we're never going to go back to the way it was, but we can be protective of where we are and where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you just look at the different issues that we have in the fire service right now. Uh, you know, trying to find a PPE that doesn't have, isn't causing us cancer. The pending OSHA standard coming out. These things, we need to address them before they become an issue and figure out how we're gonna how to implement without destroy. You know what I mean?
I do, but I'm much more simpler than that, Nick. Like, I just want to have fun in the firehouse.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I don't want to get caught up, and we do at National Fire Radio, and some of the conversations we're in and things we're involved with, they are much larger issues that are facing the fire service. But for me, it's very simple. I don't care. Listen, Gears had PFAS in it forever. I hope we can do something about it. Give us the same, barrier protection without it, so our people are better protected. I agree, but it's not happening overnight. Nothing happens overnight, and it's going to take time. So I'm not worried about that.
You can't.
What I'm worried about is, how do I maintain staffing in my volunteer firehouse? What I worry about is, how do I maintain that culture that the next round of volunteers that come through my system want to become career firefighters? Yeah. Like, these are simple things that I can control. We just have to put the work in to control it. Are you willing to do it? And then, do you have the next guy willing to step up and understand the importance of that? And then he's willing to protect them. We have to be protective of the core values of the fire service. And when we let that slip, we take shortcuts, or we don't hold it to such a high standard anymore, we're going to lose. And I know volunteer firehouses all over the country are lowering standards to try to get more people in to fill positions. And that is the absolute wrong way to do it.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%.
We need to do a better job at that. And our citizens require it. Our residents require it. And frankly, our guys do, because if I get jammed up, I don't need some subpar piece of shit letting me die because they didn't do their job, because I didn't hold them to it, because I was worried about feelings.
Well, and see, you said require it. I think they deserve it.
100%.
Not only require it.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. So a lot of times when I have these conversations, it trends this way, and it always sounds like doom and gloom. But if you listen to my message, I'm still very hopeful. What I am is real. What I am is real, though. We have to do the work. We have to put the work in. And that is the answer. When people are like, well, how do you do it? I go, do the work. Do the work. And that is where the rubber meets the road, and we can get in trouble because people aren't willing to do the work.
See, and I think that might also be the issue, is I may be willing to do the work, but I might not know how or what's the work to do. You know what? Like we were talking about earlier in the conversation, the senior guys that we had that taught you how to do this and how to do that and how to use this tool aren't doing that anymore necessarily. And and that difference of communication between, when we grew up, again, talking to guys that were, around the Vietnam era, World War II era, and now the generation now talking to us, it's not the same. Like, they're asking one thing, but we're hearing another. And, it's not necessarily everybody's being taught how to drive that culture or where that culture came from. And if you don't know where it came from,
and that is why the Bridging the Gap class that I offer is so successful right now, and is being ate up all over. It's because these are truly the issues that are occurring in our firehouses, and a lot of people don't know how to deal with them. And we don't really have the greatest generation walking the streets anymore. No. Silent generation's the next generation after that. It's the smallest generation because they were impacted by the Great Depression and World War II. My father's part of that group. They put their head down. They work hard. Then you have baby boomers, they're technologically savvy, they're entrepreneurial, they're hardworking, right? They're quite liberal, things like that, right? And then you go to Generation X, right? And that's me and my generation. Our generation bridges the gap. We knew life before the internet. We know life now. So we are the ones that tend to bridge the gap. Hence my program that I put together. It's my generation. I'm 47 years old. From there, you got millennials, then you got Gen X or Gen Z, and then Gen Alpha. And I can go through the whole list. This is what that program is about. It's finding commonality. And there is commonality between generational values. What you have to understand, though, is there's a different way to communicate today.
Mm-hmm.
And so those that have something to teach have to find ways in which to teach it today. Yeah. Because you have to reach the audience that you're trying to talk to. Hence, 6 years ago when I started National Fire Radio, because Fire Engineering and Firehouse and other publications weren't getting the reach because they weren't innovating and learning how to deliver their message.
Yep.
It's very much the same today with guys in our firehouses. They're becoming frustrated in how to educate the newer generation coming in, but they're not taking the time to understand where they're coming from and how to communicate with them. And they're not willing to put in the work because it shouldn't be on them. It should be on the new kid. And that is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the beautiful thing about all of this. The ones that bitch and moan are the ones that raise this next generation. So
I say it all the time.
So like I think about my children and what I do for them. I try to make things easy for them. We never want the next generation to have it harder than we do.
Of course.
But as we create that environment, we're creating more entitlement and a softer generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cyclical, so it's going to come back around. When times get tough again, we're going to get tougher people. That's just how it works. The fire service is very funny this way. And this is a big part of what I teach and talk about. And I'm so glad you kind of brought this up because it kind of sums up everything we've been talking about today. You have to do the work. Everybody does. I need the same amount of work out of the 20-year guy that I do out of the 1-year guy, but the 20-year guy doesn't want to do that work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't. And I don't blame them. I'm one of those guys. I don't want to have to do the work anymore. I get it.
Because you look back at when we came in the fire service, that 20-year man, like in my department, we called him a 20-year man. That 20-year man didn't have to do the work because we still had 15 young guys
to pick up
25 to pick up the slack.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
But now he's seeing that, guys my age and your age are the 20-year man. And we're still, only 5 or 6 people from the bottom of the list.
I 100% agree with you. And that is part of the disconnect.
Yep.
For sure.
100%.
So, that's good stuff, man.
And again, that's the things that we can't control. We can't control people coming in the door.
No, but we can control the culture and the tempo and our execution and delivery.
Yep.
And
100%.
And we can control all those things. And when we do that, we are then just taking people and inserting them into our process. And the most successful departments or companies are able to pick up anyone and insert them into their program. And it usually works. And if it doesn't, it weeds them out and they don't stay. It's the organizations that don't have a firm structure in place that typically find people floundering within their organization because they don't know where they belong and they don't know what the expectations are.
Yeah.
So,
and this younger generation, like I'm sure for your class, it sounds like you've done the homework. This younger generation wants to feel fulfilled, wants to feel like they belong and they have a purpose. If you're not giving them a purpose, you're not doing it for them, and they're going to walk out the door.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go Jersey questions.
All right. We'll go to the Jersey questions. First, is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
It's Taylor ham every day, all day. You South Jersey people are not right. Go ahead. It's very simple. I mean, I know. Listen, it's Taylor's ham, but it's pork roll. The Taylor ham was the brand name, but it's actually pork roll. Like, all right, great guys, but ultimately it's Taylor ham.
All right.
And to be frank, 49 other states don't even know what it is. So like, let's just keep it in New Jersey and let the South people keep crying like they do. It's freaking Taylor ham. Next.
Who's got the best pizza?
That's a shoot, man. I'll be honest with you. I want to do the Camden area pizza crawl, like the tomato pies and stuff. Like I haven't done that.
Okay.
So in all fairness, my South Jersey pizza exposure is not that good. I am a pizza aficionado up here in North Jersey.
All right, what do you got?
Kinchley's is probably one of my top. Kinchley's cash only, red and white checkered tablecloths, super thin crust, like really good. Ramsey, right on like the New York border, like Suffern, like Rockland County, Bergen County border. Ramsey, I think Portnoy, I think he gave it at like a high 8. I think it was like mid to high 8. Patsy's and Patterson, and then you got Lido's and Hackensack. So there's a couple good places, but Kinchley's for a long time was my Friday night go-to with my wife. We'd split a pie, sit at the bar. She'd do 2 glasses of wine. I did 2 beers, and we were in bed by 8:30. That's what happens, bro. That's what happens with the week we have, and then whatchamacallit, and then my kids getting old enough now that they go out on Friday, Saturday nights. So we have no kids at home on the weekends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what's next?
Do you go to the beach? You go down the shore?
We go to the shore. I don't really say down to the shore. We just say go to the shore. Down to the shore. Go to the beach. I say them both. I don't think I'm hell bent on one or the other. I'm a Long Beach Island kid. We vacation in LBI every summer in July. We rent a house with friends down there. I grew up down there, and it's just that is for me. I love LBI because it is super family oriented. It is beach oriented. Good restaurants. There's not. I don't like the boardwalk. I'm not a big boardwalk guy. Like that is a distraction for me. I like going to LBI, sitting on beautiful beaches, going to nice bars and good restaurants, and so on. So LBI is our place.
All right. Well, that was the next question, was which beach?
Yeah. I can break it down even more. I mean, I'm a Beach Haven. I'm a Beach Haven Holgate guy.
All right.
So I got friends all over that island. Come on to the island. You can hang left and go north. I got friends up there. I have a lot of friends south on the island. We go south, and Holgate's the bottom of Long Beach Island. When I was growing up as a kid, nobody ever wanted to go to Holgate. It was full of black flies and trailer parks. Hurricane Sandy wiped out the southern tip of LBI, and they've rebuilt everything down there, and it's just stunningly beautiful. And you're talking multi-million-dollar homes there now, and it's just a great beach to vacation on. And you're 5 minutes away from Bay Village and Fantasy Island, and the downtown shopping areas. So you're there's no traffic like the middle of Beach Haven, and it's 5 minutes down the road. So I love it.
All right, liking it. I don't know if I'm gonna like your answer for this, but does Central Jersey really exist?
No, it does not. There's literally no such thing.
All right. So where do you draw the line of
195?
195. All right.
Yeah.
Now,
195. But I'll even say this, like from a North kid going south on the Parkway, once you hit the Driscoll Bridge, I mean, that's literally like South Jersey to me, even though 195 is more south than that.
Yeah.
If I'm on the Turnpike, it's 195. Like,
so,
the splitting line's 195.
So the Driscoll is a difference, and then 195 is a difference. That's almost like there's a midsection.
Yeah, but there's not. You see how that works?
Now, okay.
It makes sense. It makes sense in my world. Bro, if you want me to admit there's a Central Jersey, it's not going to I've never even talked about that. Like, I don't know what Sandy Hook? Is that Central Jersey?
around that area.
No, it's the beach, man. That's the shore.
Oh,
So
from
it's
the
south.
Driscoll
It's
to.
freaking south,
Oh,
bro.
okay. Well, so now along
So are
along
you
those
saying like
lines.
Belmar is Central Jersey?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're out of your mind. Like I don't know where you were raised or what's wrong with you if you ate lead paint or
If
something,
you,
bro. There's no such
I
thing.
used to just drink it.
Good for you. Puts hair on your chest.
But literally, if you find the midpoint in New Jersey, it's about 5 miles from my house that I grew up in.
In South
So
Jersey.
no, Central Jersey.
Right.
Central.
We're not going to agree on this. There's no way.
All right. So so now that being said, do you feel that the shore is a different area than South Jersey?
No, it's all south.
All right.
Like, because I don't go. There's no other, like, if you think about New Jersey, right? When the way the Turnpike and the Parkway cross each other, right? So
Right
the
around the Driscoll.
Turnpike goes from east to west, but north goes from northeast to southwest,
Yeah.
and the Parkway goes from north. I would say probably northeast to southeast. It stays along the coast, right?
Yeah.
So the thing with that is everything's south, but nobody ever goes like when you get down to like past 195 on the Turnpike. It's kind of like everything to the east of the Turnpike is like no man's land. And then everything to the west is like influenced by Philadelphia. Like if you live in South Jersey, you're a Philly fan. You're not a New York sports fan.
See, but that's the thing. I grew up in Freehold.
Yeah, which is South Jersey.
A Yankees, a Giants, a
So
Rangers fan.
All right, I'll give you the Rangers because I'm a Rangers fan. Like, I get it. At least you're not a Devils fan and Jets and all that crap. Anyway, Jersey. Listen, for people that are listening to this that have no idea what New Jersey is, it's a super cool place and it's a small little state, but there's a tremendous amount of character, and we are all very, very different. Very different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the next question. Who are or were some of your mentors?
My father was instrumental in who I am. I'm like Tommy Boy. That's part of my program. I put a picture of Tommy Callahan up and I talk about that. My father was Tom also. So it's just kind of fitting. My father was very instrumental in my upbringing, in just life, being a good person, a family man, somebody that takes care of his family, love for the community, love for the fire service, all those things. Super, super important. So I took a lot from him, and he is one of my favorite people, no doubt. And he certainly has mentored me. I think about the younger kids, when I was younger as a kid, the older guys in the fire department, and just looking up at them like they were pillars of the fire service and just pillars of men. Like these guys were tough as nails. Like they laughed and joked around and fucked around with the best of them. And then they were just stone cold face when it was time to do work. And you looked at these men and like, that was the influence I had growing up, where these guys were just men. Like just hard as nails, like men. And that was a big influence for me. I don't have particular mentors within my own fire department per se. I would say it was a collaborative effort from a lot of different people that I respected greatly. And I learned from each of them in different ways, but I didn't have that one guy that was like, I'm going to shadow him. And I didn't have that. The other thing too, which I think is really interesting, is the fire service today, I think, can act as the senior man. And I think that you could be influenced. I know Mickey talks about this a lot. He and I've talked about it on the podcast. The fire service can greatly influence a lot about you and how you want to carry yourself and conduct yourself on the fire ground and in the firehouse. And I think that that's important. And not everybody, I feel like we talk about mentorship and the senior man a lot. And the issue is that, you have to allow yourself to be open to looking in other places. Not everybody's going to have a senior man, and not everybody's going to have a mentor. And we put those things on a pedestal, and then there's a lot of guys that are like, man, I don't have a guy like that near me. And I'm like, but you can find influence elsewhere. And and I think that that's really important, especially where we are today, as we're losing track of the senior man, and we're losing track of what that all looks like. It's, you might not have somebody in your own department or in your own company, and that's okay. Just make sure you're looking and keeping your eyes wide open for things that are instrumental in helping you grow and be better. And I think that you can find that in other places.
Absolutely. What is your proudest achievement or accomplishment in the job?
I don't know.
See, that's a tough one.
I've had a lot of important moments. God, I'm trying to think, like, off the top of my head. I don't know. I've had plenty of rescue scenarios, things that I've been involved with life-saving and things like that. Like, I don't put those on, like, it's weird, right? Like, I don't put those on a pedestal.
It's part of the job.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm not being ignorant about that, right? Like, it's super important, and knowing, like, you affected a positive outcome in something that you were directly involved with, right? Whether it was making a grab or cutting somebody out of a car while under arrest, or CPR, like all those things, right? Like, there are moments that we all act because that's just what we're supposed to do. I don't put one over the other, but I would say some of the greatest accomplishments that I've had are actually really good fires. Just doing the job well, like, like where everything clicks, and and you're like, it could have been a little bit better, but man, that was a good fucking knock. Like, there's nothing better. I remember early on, we had a great, picture perfect room and contents fire, second floor fire in a 2.5-story wood frame. We pull up, I'm riding the back seat. It's on my side. So pull up, jump out, grab the cross lay with the fireman. I'm the backup. And my guy, who's the chief today, was the nozzleman. We go, the driver had us dead nuts to the door with the stretch. It was perfect. I remember kneeling down, flaking the line out while the nozzleman's masking up. As he's getting masked up, I flake the line out. Then I take a knee, and I'm masking up. He takes the line. First floor is perfect visibility. As soon as you get to the landing on the second floor, it's down to the floor. We make the left. We put the line into the bathroom at first because we saw fire in the mirror. We thought there was fire rolling around in that room. That was the first room. But my point is like, we made the turn. We made the fire room. We had a great push. Fire was out 2 windows on arrival. It was like picture perfect. Like, nobody got
just all clicked.
I just wish there was a photographer there to go, like, click. It was like the picture perfect, black as night, but lit up because 2 windows of fire venting. And that line went through the front door, up the stairs to the left. And other than putting water in the bathroom for 3 seconds, that fire went out in 12 seconds. And it was like this picture perfect, like everything went like clockwork. And it was a moment where you come out, and when it's all said and done, you pull the boards, you open up the room. We're good. Things went really well. Just a simple bread and butter fire. Moments like that stick out to me more importantly than any other thing that I've been involved with. And there's been multiple fires like that. I remember we had a fire, and I had a bunch of younger kids with me, and this fire was, this place was off to the races. We didn't have hydrants in that area, so it took us a while to get a positive water flow. and so on. But we were using tank water, tank to tank, and then the pumper tanker or the tanker at the time. We didn't have pumper tank. Tanker was there. We were using that water. We had like 6 cars going in the driveway, well-involved garage. We had fire in multiple rooms. We made the push, and it was awesome. And then we ran out of water. And so we kind of had they wanted to back out. I said, let's just hang in here for a minute. I said, we got this. We'll get water in another minute. We'll get back into this push. We go outside, we're going to lose this place. And while we were standing there, 2 young kids with me, probably their first fires. And I remember saying to them, like, guys, like the one kid was backing me up and then the other kid was down the line. And I said, guys, come here. And I brought them up to the front of the line. And I said, just look at the fire behavior here. And we watched this fire start to progress again, up the wall, across the ceiling, starting to come down the hallway, starting to lick into different rooms. It was moments like that where I was like, man, you don't often get to see that part of it because visibility was pretty clear. It was kind of lifted by then, and so on. And so to be able to share that with those kids and kind of explain it, and to kind of like mentor in a way, that was cool. That was a moment that that sticks with me. There's been just many fires where, there was a fire in Poughkeepsie in a 3 or 4 story walk up restaurant on the first bar on the first floor, apartments above. I mean, the paint in the hallway on the stairs was everything was blistered. I mean, this place was end to end. I'm out driving the engine with the career lieutenant at the time, and we're 2 blocks away, and it was in the city. And we ended up being like the second engine in on this thing. And it was like, it was just a moment where I'm a 20-year-old kid driving the engine for the career lieutenant, and we make the back of the building and we lay in, and then we go up the stairs. It was one of those moments. And those are the things that stand out to me. It's like when things go right, and you've put the work in to reap the reward. To me, the reward is like, that's that selfish thing that keeps me coming back. It's now I find myself, in the last few years, I'm one of the more senior guys in my house. And so a lot of times I end up driving these days, and I still love fighting fires and getting on the nozzle. It's just not in the cards. We got younger kids and they're not qualified drivers, whatever it is. Right. So I find myself on the pumps more and more for fires, and I don't enjoy that. I try to find my way to get away from that, and usually when another guy gets there, I grab him. I'm like, you're taking this, I'm going in, and for me it's like even just having a good night of taking that position as the chauffeur, the engine company chauffeur, and doing it really well. Those are moments for me that like make me want to keep coming back. It's not going to be
clicks.
Yeah, it's not like, oh man, I made 3 grabs and I did this and I did that. Like those moments are few and far between in most people's career. And I've had some, sure, and I've had some opportunities to make a difference in saving lives. There's no doubt, but those are not the moments for me that are highlights. I just enjoy the game, and I enjoy the process, and I enjoy when things go right. And it's because I think we trained so long, we worked so hard for it to work right, that when it does, it's a huge win, bro. Huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and then I'll let you go.
We've been going long, man.
Yeah, hour 45 almost.
Beautiful.
What advice do you have for the fire service?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think for an hour and a half tonight, I think I hit it, but I will say this. I think the job is good. I think it's still good. And I think that we are too often blinded by what's right in front of us and not looking at the long game and not willing to put the work in for the long game. I think we have to stop saying that you work in the worst firehouse or you're a member of the worst department. You have to start taking ownership of where you are, whether you want to or not. That's where you are, brother. You need to take responsibility for some of it. And I think that's important because when you start taking ownership and you stop pointing fingers and you start pointing them at yourself and you start taking ownership, I think then and only then can you start affecting change, even if it's on a small level.
Yeah.
I think so many people are so accustomed to placing blame elsewhere. And I think that that's a really bad thing for us. And I think that's what leads us to people thinking that their fire company is not good and their department sucks. And I hate this place. Meanwhile, they have no idea what it's like down the road. And I can promise you this, if you think it's bad where you are, I bet you it's worse somewhere else. I just want people to understand that the fire service is still good. Everything I talked about tonight could be construed as maybe negative. I don't want to come off that way because I still think the fire service is very good. I think there's great values here. I think there's really good things that are still happening.
Yeah.
We have to allow them to happen. And that's
100%.
important. And so I hope that people believe that. And if I can reach one person tonight with that statement and say, like, just go all in on it.
Yeah.
Just go all in on it and enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun and you're supposed to enjoy it. And if you don't, a lot of us came into this in love with it. I talked about that flirtatious time and how important that is. And a lot of us maybe have fallen out of love with it, or our love's not as strong as it once was. I challenge you to try to find the love again.
Absolutely.
I really do. So, Nick, thank you, man. Thanks for a great episode.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out, coming on. We'll say, do you have any shout outs? Anything you want to push? Anything coming up?
I'm good, man. National Fire Radio. You can find me. You can find the platform on any social media platform or podcast channel. We got a lot of
presenting your class anywhere.
Yeah, I'm all. I think I have. I think upwards of 20 places next year that I'm doing it. That I'm already booked, and the calendar has really filled up with the program, which is really cool. I don't know if they're all like open. Open invite. I don't know. I'm doing it for department stuff, some conferences. But I always post it too on social media. So, but you can also, if you're interested in my Bridging the Gap class, you can just go on YouTube or on my social media or on my podcast channels and listen to it. I post almost every single one of them, the audio and the video. A lot of times I record almost every time I do it. And post it. So if you're interested in hearing what it's all about, you can find that online.
Excellent. Outstanding. Yep. And I mean, maybe there's one person that it lives under a rock that comes out on Thursday nights to listen to my show that has no idea who Jeremy from National Fire Radio is.
I'm sure there's a lot of people, Nick. I'm sure there's a lot of people.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, I want to say this to you, and I started off the show this way, and I'm gonna say it again and reiterate it. I know what it takes to get to 40 episodes. I know the amount of work that goes into it, and thank you for doing that. I think that's important, and I hope you're enjoying it because it's good when you get people together to talk about the job. We're making the job better.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And thank you for doing what you do with your show. And
yeah, man.
Really,
anytime. I love it. I love it. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. So, yeah, because my wife doesn't want to hear me talk anymore. So I figured I'll just grab a microphone and let the world hear me.
All right, hang out. I'm going to put you in the backstage area. Say
man. Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That wraps up another excellent episode. Run number 40 with Jeremy Donch from National Fire Radio. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.